The recent surge of asylum seekers at our country's southern border has resulted once again in having unaccompanied minors being sent to sponsor families in Montgomery County. With us today to discuss the ramifications is former House of Delegate member and attorney Maricé Morales. Maricé, according to Council Member Craig Rice, families are making a really tough decision about whether or not to send their children on the precarious journey to travel to the United States to escape death, and what is almost certain death in many cases, and being forced into gangs or being killed by gangs. Bethesda Magazine reports that up to 3,000 unaccompanied minor children could be sponsored here in Montgomery County. What are the issues facing the county from receiving such a large number of children?
Sure. No, thank you again for inviting me for this important conversation, Casey. So we know that the DC area has received one of the highest numbers of unaccompanied minors nationwide. Fairfax leading that number with 184 minors, and then Montgomery County receiving 104. As an immigration attorney, I can tell you that the majority of unaccompanied minors that are reunified into our communities, 49% are reunified with an immediate relative parent. 41% are reunited with a distant family member. So it's not necessarily the case that they will be kind of just dumped into the community and then will become a burden to the county. They're reunified with parents, and the Office of Refugee and Family Reunification, ORR, they do the vetting. They identify the family prior to releasing the minor child. And so prior to them even arriving in the county, they've already gone through sort of a little bit of a labyrinth. And 90% of minors that are not represented by counsel at the border are being returned to their home countries. So just to kind of give a little bit of a context, by the time that they arrive, there's already been somewhat of a case filter and medical examinations, et cetera, et cetera. Now,
well, the question is always whether or not there are sufficient social services that are going to be able to provide assistance for these young minor children. Is that the case in Montgomery County? Do we have sufficient capacity?
We know that we are at capacity. We know, we've heard from our county leaders and Dr. Raymond Crowell that we are at capacity. That said, we also know that the county does want to find creative ways to provide wraparound services. But in the vast majority of cases, like I said, they're being reunified with families that are already making their own income, et cetera. So prior to even having some kind of status, like as I mentioned, there's going to be, first of all, there's going to be a USCIS kind of an immigration labyrinth that these young people have to go through, and then also go through a state court system where a judge will essentially grant custody to the legal parent or the family member in the county. So there is definitely a system where a judge is going to be figuring out whether this family member or parent is going to be able to take care of this individual, and there is a sense of what like the best interest of the minor is going to be, if there's going to be enough financial assistance in the home, et cetera. So I understand there's a lot of confusion. When you receive these individuals and these high number of unaccompanied minors, and we're quick to kind of just assume that they're going to be a public charge, but it really in the highest percentage of cases, they're going to be reunified with a parent that's already making their own income. They already have a job, et cetera. And a lot of these young people end up getting jobs on their own and taking care of themselves later on. So,
Maricé, what about the burden on the school system? I mean, we are coming out of a pandemic where we may not even be fully opened next September. How is that going to burden the school system more?
Right. No, and that's definitely a concern. We know that 3,000 students, that's equals to one new high school, right? We've heard of those numbers, and so I know that the county leaders are talking about this. They know that they're going to need to again find creative ways to make sure that the county is ready. I mean, we just all we can do is prepare. We can look at the data. We know that, the numbers are staggering in comparison to other years. But at the end of the day, these are individuals who are being reunified with parents, our neighbors, people that are already here, like I said. And so we can, I'm not an expert in terms of what resources there are, but we know that at least the leaders are preparing for it and talking about how to best fit the needs of these unaccompanied minors in our schools.
Maricé, we only have a couple minutes left, and I need to bring up what critics point out. Critics point out that during the last wave of asylum seekers in 2016, that 2 years later, gang activity had increased dramatically. So is the county prepared to address this and how to prevent? I mean, if they're trying to escape gangs in their home country, are they also able to escape gang activity here?
Right. No, and as a criminal defense attorney and as an immigration attorney, this is something that's very concerning. Obviously, public safety is really important. But I also would like to take a step back. A lot of times the media make leap assumptions, that when an individual who happens to be Latino, happens to be of a certain age, that they're immediately profiled as gang members, etc. I have myself actually reached out to some of these writers from the Washington Post, and other media outlets, and I've caught them in making incredible assumptions. Even when you look at the charging documents, even though they're charged with a certain crime, gang membership was not one of them. So there's definitely room there to really explore the issue a little bit more. But just because these individuals are unaccompanied doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to end up being gang members in our communities.
No, I appreciate that. I just want to make sure that our public safety officers are prepared to deal with 3,000 new young people coming into the county, because it is an awful lot of individuals to absorb in a relatively short period of time. I want to thank you for your expertise on this matter and for being here with us today. And I hope you come back again in this capacity or some other capacity in the near future. Thank you very much, Maricé.
It's my pleasure.
When we come back from this short break, emails obtained from a Freedom of Information request between Health Officer Travis Gales and some of his colleagues have created quite a stir. Stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss this.